All right, we're Team 4. We're going to talk to you today about an innovation method called value curves, which is pretty widely used. We have a little intro video to get you familiarized with the subject.
The advent of commercial airlines revolutionized the way people travel the world. Customers can now fly across the globe in a matter of hours. Families can be reunited for the holidays, exotic faraway vacations planned and executed, and business trips completed quicker than ever. There was clearly immense value in air travel, which spurred on the growth of many competing airline companies. In order for these companies to succeed in such a competitive industry, however, each had to create a business that readily predicted and accurately addressed the needs of their customers. In the early 1980s, one such company was Virgin Atlantic Airways, a new airline in the United Kingdom. In an effort to stand out among its competitors, Virgin Atlantic Airways asked themselves, which factors were the most influential in determining a customer's selection of airline? How important were factors such as price, speed, safety, luxury, and customer service? What is the best way to organize and utilize this information to capture value? The answer they found and the method they used was value curves. Through the use of value curves, Virgin Atlantic Airways discovered a way to distinguish itself among its competitors. By focusing only on the factors that were truly important and eliminating the ones that were unnecessary, this newcomer was able to firmly establish itself in the industry. Reasons for their success include their ability to identify and forego ineffective profit generators and the willingness to deviate from the industry standard to offer innovative services exclusive to their airline. Although the airline's unique offerings flew in the face of conventional practice, their expert use of the value curve in conjunction with the insightful understanding of the product and the needs of their customers allowed Virgin Atlantic Airways to not only compete but to thrive in the airline industry. The advent of commercial airlines revolutionized.
Watch it again.
Okay, so we'll be talking, as you saw now, about innovation through the usage of value curves. As presented before, the problem that we're trying to tackle is how companies face lower costs and at the same time higher value for their customers. One solution to this, we've heard it in the Blue Ocean's lecture already, is value innovation. You can read the definition of value innovation. It's the ability to challenge assumptions about strategy and to seek to make the competition irrelevant instead of competing on established ground. So keep in mind, you have to make the competitors irrelevant. You try to find new solutions, new problems. The two authors that came up with this strategy, Kim and Morgan, they had a 5-year study where they looked at different companies and they looked at which companies were successful in the same industry and which weren't, and why could some retain sustainable profit and others didn't. The conclusion that they came up with was that the difference was not because of different tools they applied or different strategies, but because of the company's fundamental implicit assumptions about the strategy. They kind of crystallized two different opposing strategies or approaches to strategy, which was the conventional approach, which we all know, staying ahead of competition, delivering the better product, cheaper, faster, quicker, or what they call the high growth approach, which makes competitors irrelevant through value innovations. So here's a quick sum up where you I'll walk you through the 5 dimensions of strategy and how they differentiate. So we start with industry assumptions, whereas in the conventional logics, you'd see them as given. In the innovation logics, you want to shape them. You don't want to be limited by your industry, but you actually want to go beyond it. The strategic focus, therefore, isn't competitive advantage, which would mean you try to be quicker, faster, cheaper, better or have a better product than the others and get their clients, but you try to find value that is not delivered yet. So you find a new value proposition. The same is for customers. So in the conventional logic, you would try to retain your customer base and to expand this. Whereas in the innovation logic, you kind of try to target the whole new mass, because as you don't want to be limited by the industry, you don't want to be limited by your customers' expectations as well. You really, we had the example of Wii, which targeted non-gamers and women, and through this they made up a whole new market. For assets and capabilities, it's always the same logic behind. Whereas in the conventional logic, you try to leverage your existing capabilities. In the value innovation, you try to redefine and reframe the problem you're working on. And you see whether actually what you've been delivering so far doesn't deliver the value something else probably would. And then with the products, it's the same. You don't want to be limited by the industry's assumption, but you actually want to try to go beyond it. So an example as a train company, you don't only look at other train companies, what is train CBA doing, but you try to think from customer base, what's the value you're proposing? So you're proposing transportation. So you compete in fact with airplanes, with cars, with all that. So this is where the value curve comes into play. The definition of the value curve would be it's a graphic depiction of the way an industry configures its offering to customers. So actually what it is, it's a tool to create new market space. It serves two different purposes. First of all, it captures the current state of play in a non-market space. So this tries to tell you where you are. And then second, and that's probably more important for innovation, it maps out an existing competitive space that's not used yet, where you could be innovative. So let's look at one. Here you see these value curves that were also lying behind the Blue Ocean strategy, by the way. So we really want to try to make you understand how they work. So you have here the horizontal axis, here, where you have different key factors that are seen as critical in the industry. So for example, that would be price, service, for airplanes would be safety. And here you have the horizontal axis, where you kind of rank them, where you stand and where your competitors stand. So this could be Delta, this could be US, this could be Virgin, for example. And so you see, for example, here this is not covered at all yet. So this is existing competitive space that's not used yet, where you could innovate. The important thing is you have to shift the value curve. So only mapping out the existing ones wouldn't be as innovative as you would like to be. So you don't try to find better solutions, again, that's conventional, better solution, existing problem, but you try to make a reorientation, and you go away from competitors to the alternatives. That's the example I gave with the trains, and you also think of plane, car, whoever delivers transportation, and you go from customers to non-customers, as we did in the gaming sector. Through this, the value that this brings to you is you gain insight into how to redefine the problem, because you actually understand what your key success factors are, and you reconstruct buyer value elements, and you always think from a customer perspective. And the tool, how you do that, is you use so-called 4 actions framework. I'll just go briefly into this. We'll do this in a case study afterwards. So you have the 4 actions. It's reduce, raise, create, eliminate. And that's always depending on those factors that you see in the industry as critical. And now you can either reduce your offering below the industry. So you say, for example, you serve less service, take-out restaurants, self-serving, but you can offer it at a much more competitive price. Or you can raise it above the level. Again, you can do that with price, so you're signaling more quality. You can eliminate, say, actually that's not important for our product, so you just cross it out, something that's been seen as critical. And then the most innovative thing is you create. You actually find new factors that haven't been offered yet.
So we can apply this to the case study we've been talking about for a little while here, Turkey Airlines. So prior to Virgin Atlantic, we'll just talk about Virgin Atlantic because it happens to be the perfect example of new value curves. There were 2 different kinds of airlines. There's really economy airline, which is more like a Southwest, and then there's the legacy airlines, which are a little bit more like American Airlines or Delta, that kind of thing. And you can see from these value curves, there's like essentially, they're not great airlines. There's a lot of space to innovate, a lot of ground to be made up. So we've applied the 4-action framework as Virgin Atlantic did. And so they started with, which of the factors in the industry should be taken for granted and should be eliminated? So they thought to themselves, like, what is our most profitable part of business? It's business class. So let's focus on that. So they said, okay, be provocative. We're not going to go after people like after trying to just increase our current customer base. We're going to eliminate first class. We're going to focus on the business class business. So that means, why would you eliminate first class? Well, it's expensive to provide the extra food and the extra drink. There's extra service that's included in first class is additionally expensive, and then the seats take up generally more space. So they decided to eliminate first class. Next step, which factors should be reduced well below the industry standard? Let us self, okay, we're thinking about business class, we're going to decrease our focus on economy class. Our part of the industry is going to be about a great service. It's going to be about a great flight. It's going to be about a great terminal experience. We're going to eliminate the economy class. Then they thought about which factors should be raised well above the industry standard. Well, on this business class thing, we think to ourselves, how do we increase the experience for a business class customer? The first thing they did, and as any intelligent person would do, was they put a bar into the cabin. And then they thought to themselves, well, people like bigger seats, they wanted better in-flight entertainment experience. They gave them that. So they increased those things well above the industry standard. And the final thing, and potentially the most important, was they created something the industry had never offered before. They thought to themselves, okay, business class. Who are these? Who buys business class seats? Business people. What do they want? What kind of value are they looking for? Well, generally speaking, these kinds of people are interested in time efficiency, and so they thought to themselves, how can we get to that? Well, they put business centers in the terminals. They allowed people to have Wi-Fi. Well, once that became a thing, one of the cutting-edge Wi-Fi services in the air, and they also provided things like laundry services at the airport, as well as showers. So business class people thought to themselves, this is something that I want. When my secretary asks me if there's any kind of preference with what kind of airline I want to fly, they want Virgin Atlantic to be the response. And this is just a representation of the additional value that Virgin was able to find. By eliminating first class and reducing focus on economy, they actually kept the prices low, increased personal entertainment, made it a more enjoyable experience, and generally provided better service. Peter's just going to finish off with a couple of other applications and limitations of this.
Yeah, sure. So we're running a little low on time, so I'm going to kind of breeze through these, but we just wanted to show you different industries where value curves were used, so you get a sense of how widely applicable this is. So the first industry is book retailing, where this to me is sort of like the ideal value curve. Barnes and Nobles and Borders just decided that they could offer more value at every point, and you can add a new factor. You see value curves used in the cosmetics industry as well. Traditionally, I think cosmetics companies use more of an emotional approach to attracting customers, but the Body Shop decided that they would focus on sort of their ingredients and how they would lead to a healthy lifestyle and go for a more functional approach to attracting customers. And then finally, in the financial software industry, there's a pretty big gap between sort of cheap, easy to use software, which in this case was the pencil, and other personal financial software. And so they were able to sort of close the gap by eliminating some of the optional features that were typically offered. So I guess as with any methodology, there are always going to be limitations. In this case, it's a visual depiction of innovation. It's very simple, and that sort of is the limitation. It can be an oversimplification of a really complex problem. It's actually pretty difficult to identify the key drivers in any business, and it's even more difficult once you do that to quantify, whether one company does something better than another company, I guess on a relative scale. And then, so finally, just to kind of wrap it up, what we've been building to this whole time is value innovation, which we define as radically superior value for buyers and lower costs for companies. And I guess the first step to achieving that is really to identify and articulate your company's prevailing strategic logic, which I think is easy to, if you're taking a more conventional approach to innovation, it's easy to sort of not really think about yourself and get caught up in what your competitors are doing and try to outgun them. But if you really step back and look at yourself and what you do, from that point you can then reframe that logic around innovation and apply the 4 actions framework that we talked about to, I guess, come to a new value curve and drive value for your business.
Thank you.